Hello my sweet friends, welcome back to another video. Today I am going to be talking about every single book I read in 2022. I am going to be tier ranking them, which I've never done before, so I am hoping and praying that this works out with like filming and editing, but I'm also hoping that you guys really enjoy this format because I found when I was watching other book creators do their 2022 wrap-ups, I as a consumer really preferred watching this kind of format. I love being able to visually see kind of how books compare to each other. Like you can hear someone say, I loved this book and I also loved this one, but maybe one was better than the other or one ranked higher than the other. So I've decided to film it this way. I hope you guys don't mind. I hope it's a bit of fun. And before we get into the actual tier ranking, I'll talk about just a couple reading stats from last year because I know a lot of people love these stats, but feel free to skip ahead if this is not for you. You probably think I've got like an Excel spreadsheet up here. I haven't, I promise. This is just a few notes that I made because I wouldn't be able to remember all of this information off the top of my head. So my reading goal for last year was 100 books and I managed to read 167, which was such a pleasant surprise. I did not think that I would reach 167 books when I was making that goal at the start of last year. I thought 100 would be a stretch. So that is really exciting. Also, I've talked about my reading goals for 2023. In one of my previous videos, it's in my book journal video, which I'll link down below for you guys. The total amount of pages that I read in 2022 was 64,632. So crazy when you see a number like that. As for a monthly breakdown, my best reading month was August when I read 21 books, and my worst reading month was March when I read 7 books. However, in terms of pages, my best reading month was actually December because I read 8,494 pages. So we finished off the year very strongly. In terms of fiction versus non-fiction, I read 154 fiction and 13 non-fiction. In terms of genre, most of the books that I read were romance with 37%, but closely followed with fantasy, which was 27%. The Lost Sisters by Holly Black, which is just a little novella, which is part of the Folk of the Air world, I guess. You don't have to read it, but it's a little fun novella and kind of gives a little bit of insight between Taryn and Jude. And then the longest book that I read was Kingdom of Ash at 986 pages, which was one of the best books that I read. It was so good. And lastly, series versus standalones. I found this actually very interesting and a little bit surprising, but 56.3% of the books that I read were a part of series and 43.7% were standalones, which obviously means I read slightly more books that were part of series compared to standalones. I feel like I discovered in 2022 that I do prefer reading series. I still love standalones, but my favorite books tend to be series. I think just because you can really connect with a set of characters over a long time span, and I personally love that. But moving into our tier ranking, these are the tiers that I decided to go with. So we start off at the top with Ride or Die, which is obviously just like my absolute favorites. Then we have Live, Laugh, Love, which are just books that I really loved, but they weren't those like ultimate top favorites. Then we have Emotional Damage, which are books that I loved, but I can't really put them in Live, Laugh, Love because they caused me emotional damage. Maybe they made me cry, maybe they made me sad, maybe they just weren't like necessarily fun books, but I still really connected to the story, the characters, really enjoyed my reading experience. Then we have I enjoyed this but haven't thought about it since. I feel like there could be a lot of books in this category where at the time I enjoyed it, it was fun, but then it kind of completely left my brain. I haven't thought about it since and I just like don't really care about it, but I would still recommend it because it's like a fun time. Then we have Meh, which is just simply that. I don't really care about it. Then we have Absolutely Not, which is simply that. And then at the bottom I have added a section for the non-fiction books that I read last year, simply because I don't really want to rate these with fiction books. It just doesn't quite make sense, at least in my brain. So I have kind of just added them there at the bottom just so that you can see the non-fiction books that I read, and honestly I recommend all of them. But then we scroll down to all of the books that I read in 2022. If the book is a part of a series, I have only included the picture of the first book. I'm just going to be talking about the series as a whole rather than each book, but here are all the books, which is really fun to see. I am going to start off with just popping a bunch of my Ride or Dies at the top because I already made a whole video talking about these at the end of last year. So we have Throne of Glass, The Inheritance Games, To All the Boys I've Loved Before, Magnolia Parks, of course, Addicted to You, Six of Crows, Shatter Me, Part of Your World. Yeah, that's it. To be fair, I would also include Everything I Know About Love by Dolly Alderton as a Ride or Die, but I have it in the non-fiction section, so we can leave her there. If you want to hear more in-depth thoughts about those books specifically and all of my thoughts, all my feelings, I'll link the video down below. But I don't want to repeat myself, and I feel like most of you know by now, if you've been watching a bunch of my videos, you know what my favorites are. Okay, now we can really like get into the meat of it. First of all, we have The Duke and I, which is the first book in the Bridgerton series. I'm gonna put this in Live, Laugh, Love. I think I rated this 4 stars. It was a good time. It was fun. I haven't continued the rest of the series yet, but I do really want to, which is a good sign. Then we have After I Do by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I'm gonna say I enjoyed this, but I haven't thought about it since, because I feel like that's a good description. I liked it, it was fine, but it's definitely not one of my favorites out of hers. It's probably one of my least favorites, but it's still good. Then we have One True Loves by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I am gonna put this in Emotional Damage because this book lives in my head rent-free. I gave it 5 stars, but it's not like a happy live, laugh, love, like fun time. It was, I don't want to say traumatizing, but it was one of those books that every time I put it down, I was just like, what is this main character gonna do? Like, she is just in such a difficult position. I have no idea what I would do if I was her. It caused me a lot of stress, but like in a good way. When a book lives in your head rent-free, that to me is a good sign because it means it really affected you and you really connected with the story and the characters. Also, I'm obviously not going to be able to give you like a synopsis of what these books are about because we would be here forever. We have Before We Were Strangers by Renee Carlino. I can't tell if I should put it in Emotional Damage or Live, Laugh, Love. I think I'm going to put it in Live, Laugh, Love because it did emotionally damage me for part of the book, but I was enjoying it for the majority of it. Then we have The Air He Breathes. I'm gonna put this in Absolutely Not. I didn't like this. I can see why people enjoy it, but it just wasn't for me. And since then, I have tried to actually continue this series. I've tried to read the second book and I couldn't get through it. I DNF'd it, so it's just a no from me, personally. 99% mine, I'm gonna put in meh. I had really high expectations because I really love Second First Impressions by Sally Thorne, but this one was just very, very meh to me. 1,000 Boy Kisses by Tilly Cole. That has to go into Emotional Damage because it made me bawl. I feel like it gets to a point in that book where you know what the ending is going to be. Like, you know what's going to happen. And when it happened, I still bawled. Someone explain that to me because I don't understand. Next, we have Josh and Hazel's Guide to Not Dating by Christina Lauren. I'm going to put this in... I enjoyed this, but I haven't thought about it since. Again, but better. I don't know whether to put it in Absolutely Not or meh. Because Absolutely Not sounds a little bit harsh. It's not like an absolutely not, but it's just a... maybe don't read this. It's okay. It's okay. I just was bored and it was just like, no. Flow. I'm gonna put this in meh. To be fair, this is a novella that goes before, I think, a trilogy, or at least before like a series. And I read this because I was kind of like, I'm gonna read the little novella that goes before it and see if I'm hooked. See if I'm interested enough to continue the series and like invest my time into reading the series. And I just couldn't care less about this book. So I'm gonna put it in meh. A lot of people say that the rest of the series gets so much better, but I just have no desire to pick it up. Then we have Evidence of the Affair, which is actually just a novella by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I'm gonna put this in. I enjoyed it, but haven't thought about it since. Then we have Bright Side. This is easily Emotional Damage. Very similar to 1,000 Boy Kisses in the sense of I knew what was gonna happen at the end of this. Like, it was very obvious that it was gonna end the way it did, and I still cried, sobbed, but I would recommend it. Then we have Alex Approximately. This was such a fun time. I'm gonna put it in Live, Laugh, Love. I really enjoyed it. I've heard people say it's boring or they didn't like it. It is YA, but I had fun with it. It was just a good time. Love at First Spite, meh. Nothing revolutionary. Book Lovers. Ooh, should I put this in Emotional Damage or Live, Laugh, Love? I think I might put it in Live, Laugh, Love. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Ooh, okay. To Love Jason Thorne, absolutely not. Personally, I did not enjoy. At the time, I think I rated this like 3 stars and I was like, yeah, it was good. It was like enjoyable, but like, no, it wasn't. The plot lacked so much depth and I feel like there was some very questionable consent situations with that book and I just did not like it. Love on the Brain is the perfect example of Live, Laugh, Love. Things we never got over. Again, Live, Laugh, Love. That almost could be a ride or die, I think. I really, really enjoyed it. I feel like it had romance, but it still had plot, a little hint of mystery in there. It was just great. Layla. Ooh. I enjoyed this, but haven't thought about it since. Indigo Ridge. Live, Laugh, Love. That whole series. Live, Laugh, Frickin' Love. Last Time We Met. I don't know whether to put this in Emotional Damage or Live, Laugh, Love. I think I'm gonna put it in Live, Laugh, Love. Like, it wasn't super, super emotional, but it did have a lot of depth. Travis. This is kind of like a, what is the word? Companion? Yeah, companion novel to Archer's Voice. I would say I enjoyed it, but I haven't really thought about it since. I honestly, like, it almost could be in Live, Laugh, Love, but it just like didn't quite get there for me. But it was good. I would recommend it. Ivy, I think I'm gonna put in Live, Laugh, Love. The Truth About Love, that is gonna go in Emotional Damage because I loved that book. It was so good, but it wasn't as traumatic as some of the other books up here, but it definitely was like some very heavy topics. Our Secrets and Scars, this is the same author as The Truth About Love, but I'm gonna have to put it in Absolutely Not, unfortunately. This is really sad because I really wanted to like this, but it just wasn't for me. And I think that's okay. Like, I have nothing against this book particularly, or like against this author, but it's just one of those ones where I'm like, no, it wasn't for me. The Fine Print, some of these books I haven't even talked to you guys about because I read them in December and I haven't filmed my December wrap up, but spoiler alert, I'm gonna film a December/January wrap up and talk about all the books I read in December and January. That will be coming, I think, next week for you guys. But I'm gonna put this in. I enjoyed this, but haven't thought about it since. But yeah, it was fine. The cheat sheet, I think, is gonna be the same. I really enjoyed it. It was super cute, super fluffy, but I just haven't thought about it since. Mr. Wrong Number. I enjoyed it, but just haven't thought about it since. The Summer I Turned Pretty. I'm gonna put it in Live, Laugh, Love. Reminders of Him. I'm gonna put it in Emotional Damage just because I feel like it had more like hard-hitting topics compared to like light, fluffy, fun times. But honestly, I think it is one of my favorite Colleen Hoover books. I really liked The Guy. All Roads Lead Here, that almost could be a ride or die. I'm gonna put it in Live, Laugh, Love. That was really good. I really enjoyed my reading experience of that one, and I definitely want to read more from Mariana Zapata in 2023. Ooh, I Hated You First, Absolutely Not. I literally don't remember a single thing about this book except that it made me angry at how bad it was. Lotus, honestly, part of me wants to put it in Absolutely Not, but I think I'm gonna put it in Meh, because there were parts of it that I thought were like fine, but overall I just did not enjoy it. Most of All You, I'm gonna put in Emotional Damage, if I can get it there. I really liked this. This is another book by Mia Sheridan, author of Archer's Voice. It definitely has, again, some hard-hitting topics. I've heard a lot of people say they didn't like this, but for me personally, I really enjoyed it. It's one of those stories where it's like two very broken people come together, fall in love, and also just like work on themselves a lot. And I really love stories like that. Kind of similar to The Masterpiece, actually. I think I'm gonna put this in, I'll put it in Live, Laugh, Love, but it definitely did have some like harder-hitting topics in there as well. But overall, it was just a really beautiful love story. It ends with us. I'm gonna put in Emotional Damage, and it starts with us. I want to put it in Live, Laugh, Love because it was just like such a fluffy, fun time. Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna put it in Live, Laugh, Love. I know a lot of people have a lot of bad things to say about this book, but I think I just went in with very realistic expectations. I was one of those people that was kind of just like, I'm just here for Lily and Atlas content. I'm happy just to be here and like enjoy a fluffy romance, and I feel like that's exactly what it was, but I can understand people's criticisms. Okay, It Happened One Summer. I'm gonna say Absolutely Not. But this is again one of those books where it's like, I can understand why people love this. It just was not the book for me. I don't think Tessa Bailey's writing is for me. Every other book that I've tried to read from her, I have DNF'd. Well, Meh. I'm gonna put it in Meh. Nothing to write home about. Today, Tonight, Tomorrow. I enjoyed this, but haven't thought about it since. It was fine. Summer of Broken Rules. Live, Laugh, Love. I'll talk again more about that in a future wrap up. Oh my gosh, the Happy Ever After playlist. Emotional Damage, like straight up Emotional Damage. It is quite good, honestly. I did really enjoy it, but there are just, again, some really hard topics. The main character just deals with a lot of grief, and sometimes I just find that really difficult to read about. Better Than the Movies, the epitome of Live, Laugh, Love. That was just so good. That could almost be a ride or die as well, I think. The Spanish Love Deception, meh. I just didn't care. I didn't hate it. I just like didn't care about that book at all. You and Me on Vacation, I'm gonna put it in Live, Laugh, Love. It honestly could have a little bit of Emotional Damage as well, but overall I think Live, Laugh, Love. One Last Stop, probably Live, Laugh, Love as well. We're moving into some fantasy reads now. Shadow and Bone. I'm gonna put this in. I enjoyed this, but I haven't thought about it since. I actually quite enjoyed the first book in this trilogy, but the second and third book were just not it for me. It was a case of I'm reading this to finish it and not because I'm enjoying it. City of Bones, again, another one that's more recent that I haven't been able to talk to you guys about. I would say if I could split up this series, I would put the first three in like Absolutely Not because there are some questionable things that happen in the first three books of that series. But the second half of that series is honestly very good. At least I really enjoyed it. So you know what? I'm gonna pretend the first 3 books in that series doesn't exist, and I'm gonna put it in Live, Laugh, Love. And some of you are gonna be annoyed at that, but I enjoyed it. The Cruel Prince honestly could be, you know what? I think I'm gonna put The Cruel Prince in Ride or Die. This series made me fall in love with reading, and I just have to show my gratitude by putting it up there, I think. The Poppy War, I'm gonna put in Emotional Damage. So well crafted, but very difficult to read. Vicious by V.E. Schwab, you know what? I'm gonna put this in, I kind of want to put it in Ride or Die. I'm going to put it in Ride or Die, why not? I really, really liked Vicious. I'm still yet to read Vengeful, which is the second book in that little series, but the concept, phenomenal. The writing, phenomenal. Just so well done. The Style of Sea, I'm scared. I know a lot of people love this one, and I'm really sorry, but I'm going to put it in meh, but I will explain more in-depth thoughts in my future wrap-up video, because I feel like that one needs to be talked about a bit more. The Atlas 6, I'm gonna put in Live, Laugh, Love, baby. It was a fun time. I enjoyed it, but it just wasn't like my favorite. Legendborn, again, Live, Laugh, Love. That was a really fun time. I'm still yet to read the second book in that series, but the first book was fantastic. Kingdom of the Wicked, again, another more recent read. I'm gonna put it in, I enjoyed this, but I haven't thought about it since, because that's the truth of the matter. These Hollow Vows, this duology was so fun. I think I'm gonna put it in Live, Laugh, Love. Part of me wants to put it in Ride or Die because I really, really loved it when I first read it, but it's not one that like stays in my brain. Like I don't constantly think about it, but at the time it was just so fun when I read it. Okay, The Prison Healer. I'm gonna put it in meh. I didn't enjoy this trilogy at all. It was so meh, like so average to me. Guild. I don't know where to put this one. I feel like it could go in Live, Laugh, Love / Emotional Damage, because there's like a lot of trauma that she goes through in this book or in this series. But I also could put it in I enjoyed this but haven't thought about it since, but I feel like it hasn't been long enough since I read this, because I read it in December. There hasn't been enough time for me to realize if it's going to be one of those ones that stays in my brain or not, but you know what? I think I'll put it in Emotional No, I'll put it in Live, Laugh, Love. Definitely check the trigger warnings on that one if you're going to pick it up, because it's got some heavy topics, but it also like didn't make me cry, so I don't want to put it in Emotional Damage. Book of Night, meh. Great idea. I just feel like it wasn't executed as well as it could have been. I just wanted more out of this book than it gave me. And it honestly was a little bit of a struggle to get through, and it was like 300 pages, so like why is that a struggle? Legend. I enjoyed this, but I have not thought about it since. Divergent. This could almost be a Ride or Die, I think, but I think I'm just actually gonna put it in Live, Laugh, Love instead. It was a really fun time and slightly traumatic at the end there, but for someone who never got to read this when they were like 12 or 13, I'm really glad that I did get to read it this year, because it was just such an iconic series, and I'm so glad that I like finally get the hype and like get to relate. But yeah, I think if I'd read this when I was 13 or 14, I honestly would have been traumatized by the end of it. Like I don't know why she chose to do that, but like, okay. Beautiful World, Where Are You by Sally Rooney. I enjoyed this, but haven't thought about it since. It's definitely no normal people to me. My Year of Rest and Relaxation. I enjoyed this, but haven't thought about it since. Very similar. Actually, to go along with that, Convenience Store Woman, I enjoyed this but haven't thought about it since. It was a really interesting story and I think it was very well done, but it's just not one that stuck with me personally. Bunny. You know what? I'm gonna put Bunny in Emotional Damage purely because it has to go there. Like where else could this book go? It is the epitome of emotional damage because it confused the freaking heck out of me. City of Girls by Elizabeth Gilbert. I feel like this is a severely underrated book. In saying that, I know it had its moment maybe a couple years ago or so, but I feel like there are so many people who have recently started reading that would love this if they read it now. I'm gonna put this in Live, Laugh, Love. I just thoroughly enjoyed my reading experience reading this book. It kind of gives me Evelyn Hugo vibes. I say that with extreme caution because it is no Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, but it has that old Hollywood / old New York, very glamorous, fun descriptions and characters. So I think if you enjoyed that aspect of Evelyn Hugo, you would really enjoy that book. Carrie Soto is back. I don't know where to put you. I feel like this could go in Live, Laugh, Love and it could go in Emotional Damage. I think overall it kind of hit me more emotionally. When I think back at that book, I think of the family relationships and and the determination of just like being a woman and this idea of like peaking. I really, really loved all of the messages behind that book. And I wouldn't say it's like a light, fluffy, live, laugh, love time, but it also didn't make me cry. So it's not emotional in that way, but it just, yeah, it kind of like hit me in the feels, I guess. So I'll put it in emotional damage. Mary Jane, however, that is a live, laugh, love kind of book. That was so much fun. Without Merit, I enjoyed this, but I haven't thought about it since. It was a fun concept and very, very interesting, very easy to read, but just haven't thought about it since. The Last Mrs. Parrish, I'm gonna put in meh. Apples Never Fall by Leanne Moriarty, I'm honestly gonna put this in absolutely not. I just like didn't enjoy any part of this book. I should have probably DNF'd it if I'm being completely honest. I found it boring the whole way through. It didn't feel like it had a conclusive ending. If anything, the ending was completely boring and a letdown. The Swap. I'm gonna put it in meh. I think I enjoyed it when I read it, but like now I think back, I'm like, meh. The Girl Before by JP Delaney, I enjoyed it, but haven't thought about it since. Daisy Darker, I'm gonna put this in live, laugh, love, because it was a fun little time. I feel like it's really weird to be putting like a murder mystery in live, laugh, love, but hopefully the thriller girlies get it. Too Late by Colleen Hoover, honestly, I'm gonna put it in absolutely not. This is probably my least favorite Colleen Hoover book that I've read. It's so messy and so chaotic, but like not in a good way, in my opinion. Ace of Spades, I'm gonna put that in live, laugh, love. It's not really a live, laugh, love type of book, but it's not really like an emotional damage kind of book. It does touch on some really serious topics and has some really great discussions about some serious topics, but it is a YA thriller, so it was a fun time. Like, it was fun to read. Truly Devious. Honestly, I'm gonna put it in live, laugh, love. I honestly think about this trilogy way more than I should. I think I rated these books around 4 stars each. There's 3 that I've read, but yeah, these characters have lived rent-free in my brain, which is shocking because at the time I was like, yeah, it was like fun, but like it wasn't crazy. But I've really just kept thinking about those characters. As Good as Dead, I'm gonna put it in I enjoyed it but haven't thought about it since. That's kind of controversial. I know a lot of people loved this trilogy and I thought it was good. Don't get me wrong, it was a good young adult fun time, but I really just, in comparison to other YA mystery books that I've read, it's just not my favorite. The Girls I've Been, Live, Laugh, Love. Radio Silence. Ooh, I'm gonna put this in. I enjoyed it, but I haven't thought about it since. It was good, but I think if I'd read it when I was younger, it would have hit me harder, and I think it might have like stayed with me longer, but as an adult, it just didn't quite hit me the way I was hoping it would. The Cousins by Karen M. McManus, that is gonna go in live, laugh, love. I really, really enjoyed The Cousins. It was such a freaking fun time. I enjoyed every minute of it, if I'm being honest, and I would recommend. Loveless. I'm gonna put this, part of me feels like I can't put this in live, laugh, love, but then part of me is like, does it really belong in emotional damage? I enjoyed it more than I enjoyed Radio Silence. I think I'm gonna put it in live, laugh, love. But again, it's got some like really good discussions about some fairly serious subjects. But overall, I just like enjoyed my reading experience. It was really good. And I can see how this might be emotional damage for other people. And then lastly, oh my gosh, I can't believe we're right at the end. We have Clean by Juno Dawson. This is another one where I'm like, part of me wants to put it in live, laugh, love because I really enjoyed it. But it also talks about some pretty serious topics. So I feel like it could be in emotional damage instead. I'm gonna put it in live, laugh, love just because it didn't create any emotional damage long term for me, but while I was reading it, it was actually, no, I'm gonna put it in emotional damage because now I'm really thinking about it. While I was reading it, I found it really difficult to read. Clean is about a young lady who goes to a rehab center because she is a drug addict, and she meets a lot of other young people there who are dealing with lots of different mental illnesses, addictions, things like that, and it's a really, really interesting story. Really difficult, but really well done, I think. But here is my final tier ranking for all of the books that I read in 2023. It's so interesting to see them all compared to each other, but as a whole, I feel like this represents my thoughts about all of these books fairly well. But hopefully you guys enjoyed watching this video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed hearing my thoughts about all of the 167 books that I read last year. If you have any questions, please leave me a comment down below. I'll try my best to get back to you. I obviously could only speak about each of these books very, very briefly, so I could understand if some of you have some further questions about any of these books or series. I really enjoyed this. I had a fun time, and I hope you guys did too. So thank you so much for watching. I love you guys so much, and I will see you in my next video very soon. Goodbye.